Okay, so what is up, guys? This is going to be my first long form trade recap in quite a while. As you know, my last recap was really just me showing how I made $15,000 on a bunch of evals. So this is going to be our first recap of trading actual fund accounts in quite a while. And I want to really go over this trade because it's a trade I took that's usually out of my trading session. I usually only trade New York session around 9:30 to 11 a.m. But this was an overnight trade that I took, and I ended up banking around 1.5K across 4 accounts. As you see over here, there is no LARPing to be done. This is all on real accounts. I will even pull up the P&L card live in time so you can see that this is all real. Reloaded everything for you. So let's just break down why I ended up taking this trade. So right around Asia Open, this was 6 p.m., I believe. Yeah. So what do I see over here? So yesterday, so it was Tuesday, we had a massive sell-off. We sold off through Asia session around, I think it was like 400 points or something. Yeah, so we sold off 400 points last Asia session, so that was Tuesday night. And that AM session, so Tuesday morning, we had two really good targets that we had. We had this hourly wick, you can call it, right over here, which ended up getting taken out, and the target I had the day before, which was the new day opening gap. We had this new day opening gap, which we ended up edging. I got break even on, not a big deal, right? But what I saw after we took our first target, so let's just forget about this. We took this target over here and we had a strong flip higher. We flipped about 220 points higher. So what I was looking for in Asia session was, okay, can we continue this flip higher? Because I really didn't want to see price continue chopping around. If we were to close back over here, we would mostly just continue chopping around. Let me just pull up a brush. I see, you can see prices going like this. If we were to close lower, then most likely we will just continue chopping around all through Asia. So I was just seeing simply, are we going to go higher or are we going to chop around? And that's when I obviously saw that we were starting to just obviously clearly move higher. There was okay volume, nothing too crazy. So I obviously, seeing that we have really good volume, all I was looking for is some sort of decent pullback on a higher time frame. I'm not going to trade the 1 minute during Asia session. That is genuinely cooked, but I was just waiting for some sort of decent retrace either on the 5, 15, or the hourly. And I'm pretty sure we got that around 10. Yeah. Okay. So we got this massive sell off, and I'm not going to lie, I was looking a little bit for shorts in this moment here because we just got a 100-point sell off. But what I saw was we're holding this gap over here. We held a 30-minute gap, and we also held an hourly gap. Now, after this sell-off over here, we got another strong flip higher right over here on the 9:30 candle close. So this is where I took my original entry. The whole reasoning behind the entry was, look at this massive wick that we got. So we ended up dumping 100 points. I think it was, okay, I don't know where I marked it out. So we dumped 100 points as I showed you guys before. And then right as the hourly closes, we close back up another 70 points. This massive wick was more than enough to tell me that we are going to go higher. So I took my entry simply off the fact that we got a really nice entry on the 15-minute. The entry really does not matter at all because everything was based off the higher time frame. I was playing a higher time frame idea with a higher time frame stop. So this trade, simply right over here, you see we are holding this hourly gap. We held this hourly gap. So as you see right there, initial entry was simply off this 15-minute close. I really like this idea. I was going to originally target London highs right above here. It was 118 points, so it was a really big trade. I wasn't expecting this trade to hit right away, nothing like that. But this was the initial idea. Break even at internal highs. So Asia high was the break even. And let's see how this plays out. So you can obviously see we start delivering a bit lower. Off around this area over here, I did end up adding into the position right over here, right as this 5-minute close. I added into my position and I ended up tightening up my stop because I was like, okay, we are delivering higher. I will probably just end up tightening my stop. And this was the trade idea after that. So I was in with about $500 risk. I tightened up my stop, so I was just tightening up risk. Initial entry was with 3 micros, added in another 2 to put myself at around $500-ish of risk. And this was pretty much the whole idea. Now, what I also saw later on in the session, right before I was going to bed, was, yeah, the target is low-key kind of pushing it. It is a really far target. It was this right over here. And what can hold me back from my target? The only thing that can hold me back is this massive 4-hour bearish gap, we clearly inversed this 4-hour bearish gap right here already. So the only thing that can hold price back is this 4-hour gap here. So just keep this in mind. Okay, let's delete that. Okay, so obviously, yeah, so I set my alerts for Asia highs over here. I should have probably marked that gap out. Yeah, okay, so then as I said, the only thing that could have held us back was this gap over here. So I was just watching the reaction off the gap, pretty much seeing how will we continue to deliver. So you can see price does end up delivering higher sooner or later. We took out Asia highs. Okay, that didn't take it out. Okay, so we took Asia highs at around 12 a.m. I was already sleeping at this time. So I set my alert for Asia high and this 4-hour gap. So later on in the session, somewhere around here, yeah, so 1 a.m., I see we swept the 4-hour, we retraced. So my idea here was, okay, we already got our retrace, right? You see we're tapping into 30-minute gap. We tapped into 30-minute gap, literally tapped it right by the tick, continued higher. So I'm like, okay, we got one retrace. We realistically shouldn't retrace anymore. So originally I trailed right back up to here and I tightened up my trail. I was like, okay, most likely we'll go over here now. I don't want to, you know, if I'm tightening up my entry, I don't think I should target any more higher. I'm not going to get greedy because I bet you guys, if I was to get break even from this trade, you get all those comments. I was like, this is the greed they talk about in the Bible, something like that. I'm like, whatever. I'm just going to try and secure profits if I can. So simply all I was doing was just watching how do we react? How do we keep reacting off the 4-hour? So again, as I mentioned, we got our second pullback. Let's go on the line chart. You can see we got a really good retrace. So off here, we should continue either ripping higher. So either, let me pull up the brush. So we got a retrace. So right now, all I want to see is price continue higher, or if price ends up chopping around over here, as I mentioned all through Asia session over here, if we continue chopping around, most likely we are not going to do anything, right? So I was simply just watching okay, I didn't want to delete that. I was just watching how price reacted off that 4-hour again. And I saw that price obviously started to just not really do anything. So I just ended up closing my position at about 50 points. It was somewhere over here. I caught around 51, 50 something points with the trade. Yeah, okay, so the next candle was somewhere in this general area. Okay, so this was pretty much the trade. As I mentioned, if I saw us rejecting off this 4-hour gap, I'm like, okay, most likely we're not going to continue delivering. And I pretty much caught the high of the overnight session over here because as you see, the next candles end up dumping back to my entry. So as I mentioned again, I saved myself from taking an unnecessary break even by simply just watching the reaction off the gap. If I was just to blindly think we're going to continue running through this gap without some sort of higher time frame retrace, that would be completely retarded on my part. So end up closing the position for about $390 across every account. I wish I was honestly sizing heavier on this trade, but it being my first overnight trade in about 3 months, I was honestly extremely stressed out with this trade. I'm not going to lie to you. I genuinely had nightmares about the trade running through my stop loss and blowing all my accounts. And that's just because I didn't have that risk tolerance in my head or whatever you want to call it. I wasn't like, I don't know what the word is. I wasn't just like ready for that risk because I haven't risked an overnight trade in a really long time. But looking back, I probably should have just sized heavier on the trade, knowing I had so much confidence in this trade going higher. But shoulda, coulda, woulda. It is what it is at this point. This is pretty much a trade I caught. And as you guys see, we do end up delivering way lower. So it was the right idea for me to close out. And AM session ends up taking out every single draw higher, I believe. Okay, we don't. So we just end up taking London highs. But yeah, I didn't end up trading AM session because I already was up on the day. But that is pretty much the recap. If you guys have any questions, DMs are always open. Discord's also in there. I end up calling this trade out in the Discord as well. So if you guys want to see me take every single trade live in my Discord, you will clearly see that. So you can see right over here, I called out the execution, and right as I closed the trade, I showed me closing the trade, taking profits. But yeah, nothing else to the trade. Done with the trade. Pretty happy with the execution. So yeah, thank you guys for watching.